August 21, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. So this is what the chart looked like today. There was no piece of economic data that came out to really move the market. For the most part, things were just kind of range bound in about a 45-ish point range. This gray horizontal line is the pre-market highs and lows. It's not exactly the highs, which is this blue one here, and not exactly the lows, but it looked like there was some kind of, even in the pre-market, a little bit of respect being paid to this high and this low. I didn't manage to take a good trade today, or any trade. There was a trade that unfortunately tried to enter, but it left me in the dust. So it did provide a little bit of FOMO, and I had to fight my feelings to try to chase it. And it was kind of right here. I'll get to it in a minute. And there wasn't too many clean setups that I liked. There were some entries, but for one reason or another, I just didn't like either the signal bar wasn't quite right or just didn't look quite right, at least with my experience level, to feel confident taking an entry either long or short. It looked like it kind of chopped around. For the most part, it played within this trading range with overshoot. In the larger time frame, is just a failed breakout. Then it kind of went back out, broke out through the top. And I'm just going to the trades right now. So this is a pre-market high. The pre-market prices broke out, starts trading. I don't see a very good second entry anything right at the open. And as with the rest of this, well, pretty much the last few months, trading has been kind of, I not say difficult, but it was kind of sparse. There aren't as many clean setups that I could find to capitalize on. And unfortunately, there were some that were presented, in the last few days or weeks that I didn't jump on in time. And of course, there are ones that I thought were good setups, and then I jump in or take a stupid trade. So all that combined, it was just kind of been a slow last couple of months. So this is a new low. Actually, okay, so prices continue moving. It falls into this channel that I see. It kind of breaks out, calls into this channel. The first setup I see is kind of this high here. It breaks out of the pre-market high, and this is the actual absolute pre-market high, this blue line here. It looks like there's a rejection. There's a new high here, creates a first entry long, but also counted from down here became the first entry short, pulls up, creates a second entry short, and actually it creates a third entry short, but right here I thought I saw a second entry short failure. Now I didn't really like this setup. I was looking for a test of this recent high after this channel break. So after this break, I'm expecting prices to come back up and test this high, and this is what you see in real time. And it looked like it looked like it only made one attempt. So you're thinking it might make a second attempt. So I just saw it. I thought it was a break of the channel. It's bouncing off the EMA. I just didn't feel super comfortable with this setup, so I left it alone. Looks like it pushes up, and here it does make a new high. And depending on how you drew your pre-market highs and lows, which this blue line is the absolute, as I said, and this gray range is kind of where I thought, most of the price action was. I saw this as a potential fail breakout in a second entry short. So technically, you have a localized new low, first entry short, pushes back up. You're about to have a second entry short. When I saw this and it flashed down, I waited for this candle to close, and when it did close, it's like that it was at the top of the range, and the prices have retested the high of this channel. So it's a break and a new high. So you're thinking the uptrend has played out. It's going to be pushed down. It's going to fall back into the trading range. Unfortunately, when I saw this signal bar, I wasn't ready for a trade. Had this closed bearish, then I would take into account that it's right at the top of the trading range. So if this is a red candle, then I probably would have a trade entry ready. But then after this flashed down and closed at the bottom, definitely it felt like the trade already happened. It's too late to try to jump on this trade. To go one tick lower on the anticipation of the next candle here, you're going to run right into the EMA. Technically, it is in a trading range right now, but I just didn't feel comfortable taking an entry right here just yet. And then to put one entry above here, as you can see, it's hard to know that you would have gotten filled. But as soon as, I just pretty much scrapped the trade. You saw this flash up, and that would give me pause to try to enter the trade for sure now, because you don't know what's going to happen after this big green bar. You ideally want to see this red bar and then another red bar back down. Maybe like a close at the bottom with a big tail that came back up and picked you up. But again, it's coming right into the EMA. I do see a lower high confirmation of the second entry short and the failed breakout setup right here. But again, like this entry, it feels too late now. And the EMA is kind of coming up to meet this price action. So to say, well, in a trading range, the EMA doesn't matter. That's true to a certain extent, but contextual wise, it was respecting it early on. So I can't discount the fact that it might, come back and hit this guy. If I took a short here, price might come here and bounce right back up. Now, if this had actually just flashed and closed below the EMA, I feel a little more comfortable, but you can tell there's still a little bit of a struggle here for prices to try to get pushed down. So then afterwards, then it broke down and flashed down. So unfortunately, this is a almost trade, as I've kind of pointed out previously. Like there's been a lot of almost trades lately where for one reason or another, it's just not quite high probability enough, at least for my view. And so I just had to let those go. So then prices continue moving down. I see a potential triple test here. For whatever reason, it looks like there's some kind of price support being expected here. Chops through and kind of comes back up. And so at one time I was playing with the idea that maybe it's actually down here, but there was no clean confirmation right here. So I just kind of left this one here. I was just kind of paying attention to this. I do draw a channel coming down here now. This shortened channel, it had a break, tested the low, break, try to push it back up again, and it flashed down. So then I decided there's probably a channel, descending channel coming right here. Prices continue moving down. I'm not really sure what's happening except there's a strong sell-off, but there's no clean second entries. It's just very congested, very organized sell-off. Falls into this trading range, this blue one here, and there's no clean entry to take an entry long or short. Definitely, I'm not thinking long right now. Excuse me, I just kind of moved. I'm not thinking long right now because I just saw one leg, two leg, but I also saw one big leg, which is designated by this big yellow arrow. There's one leg here. I'm thinking it might pull up and then maybe create a second leg down. So I'm not really sure. So I don't want to go long, and I'm not prepared to take it short yet either. Prices continue moving. It kind of looks like it's respecting a line up here. So I actually created a second trading range, thinking, this might be the lows here because it looks like it's kind of respecting it and some highs here. It's a little confusing. I see a new high here. So first entry long pulls back, second entry long. It's struggling. There's an inside bar and now flash down. So here you also have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short right here, 1, 2. But it kind of looks like it fails on the second entry short and then continues down. So you have a failed second entry short. You have a first entry long, second entry long. It looks like a second entry long also failed. So you have a failed second entry long, which is telling you to go short, but then you have a failed second entry short, which is also telling you to go long. So that's a little confusing. So I decided this is just congested. It's the middle of this trading range. It just looks like it's a gigantic trap for someone like me that, I'm still trying to figure out how to contextualize and read these charts, and it's just barely enough room to even go short to try to get a scalp and take a long. It just feels like you're just running into a whole lot of mess. So I saw this, was confused, pretty much determined that there's probably no real setup, even though I kind of marked it here. And I do see a new entry here. It's a new low here. First entry short, pulls back, second entry short. But in real time, you see this candle, it closed right at the EMA. EMA, granted, doesn't matter when it's in a trading range, but it still just doesn't look quite right. If this had closed a little bit more bearish, I might have, at least in my mind, thought, okay, maybe there's a short here. Of course, there's a nothing burger here. There's no real setup. Prices continue moving down, falls into this channel, breaks out, comes up, it's testing the EMA. It looks like EMA is kind of holding prices down. There's this strong rejection. Unfortunately, there's no setup. Prices continue moving down. You could say there's a new high here, first entry long, but that's all you get. You don't really get a second entry long. And it breaks out. I draw the second trading range here, and I play with the idea that there might be a channel coming down here. It's one touch, two touch, and at the bottom there's one touch, two touch, potentially three touches. So I'm thinking there's a larger channel in play. So just watching carefully. You don't really get a clean entry, just have first entry short, count resets, you got another first entry short, just keeps making lower lows. Then it comes up, you got a first entry short again. Technically, you have a second entry short here. There's a terrible signal bar. So you could say it's a second entry short failure because technically it fails right here. The second entry short failure running into this potential top of the range. So I just want to leave that alone. Looks like if you did enter, you would have gotten filled here. It would have made you think you're safe and then come down, and this candle likely would have stopped you out if you decide to go short. And prices continue moving up. I thought there was some kind of channel coming up because it's clearly kind of just moving up here. It breaks out, makes a new high, but it's kind of an ugly price action. I see a new high here, first entry long, potentially a second entry long here. So I was watching carefully while during the life of this candle, it came down. I was thinking if it bounces off here and closes nice and bullish, there's probably a trade there, and I'd probably get ready to jump on it because there's enough room to scalp out for 1 point or 6 ticks. So I just sat, waited. I didn't like the close of this candle. Then it flashes up, and now I feel it's too late to try to enter this trade because the signal bar didn't give me enough indication to get ready to take a trade. So for sure I had to let this trade go. Looks like it would have worked. Then the only thing I can hope for now is try to take a higher low. But the higher low is getting pretty far from the EMA, and you kind of get a higher low here. But here you don't really have a higher low confirmed yet because you don't know if price is coming back down. So it does keep coming back down. I'm hoping to see a bounce here. It looks like so it bounces here. So technically you have a higher low here. You don't really have this channel yet. I mean, I did preliminarily play with the idea that there's a channel here, and then where this dotted line is, which pretty much ends up being the midline of this larger channel that shows up later. I thought there was potentially a trade here. What concerned me was I was running into this. This looked like there was some kind of reaction here. It's also coming close to the midline of this larger pre-market trading range. Now this is subjective because if you actually drew this a little bit higher and this a little bit lower, this might actually move. So we can actually do that right now. Actually, I need to unlock it. But if you actually drag this up to where the blue line was and you drag this down, this is coming again to the midline of this pre-market. So it gave me a little bit of pause. I was wondering if this is going to be a rejection because it already tested the highs here, breakout, made one attempt up, second attempt up. It tested in the highs of this breakout here. So now I'm thinking there might be a reversal and prices might come back down. So I just kind of left this alone. Looks like it would have worked for a higher low. Actually, I'm just going to mark it here. Higher low that unfortunately missed out on. Prices continue moving up. I'm just kind of sitting on my hands now, watching carefully. It looks like there's a kind of a confirmation of this lower channel right now. So I see a new high, first entry long. Here, it looks like it's about to create a second entry long. And I actually like this trade. I actually had my order ready, but I wasn't going to drop it in yet. I wanted, it's relatively decent signal bar. I'm going to zoom in real quick. I wanted to confirm the second entry long truly is a second entry long because you only have a first entry long. You have an anticipation of a second entry long, but you don't know that for sure. When it actually double topped, I liked it even more. So I said, okay, this is worthwhile. I'm going to enter one tick above. When this actually opened here, confirming it ticked above. So opened here, then it ticked above, flashed down, went up. I dropped my order right here, where this is pretty much where this dotted line is. Fortunately, after I dropped in my order, prices just kind of danced above and never came back to fill me. I considered chasing it a few points, but the problem, not a few points, a few ticks, the problem was it's coming into this localized high. And I noticed this channel going up, it confirmed once, twice, 3 times. So the bottom is confirming. And each time it kind of came to the bottom, it bounced back up to the top. And it bounced every time except for this instance. So now I'm concerned. If this came all the way to the top, I think I would have given myself or allowed myself to chase the trade a little bit more, but it looked like it struggled. So I was concerned as a first entry long, it could end up being a second entry long, then a failure. So I wasn't, after this closed, I decided the trade was already made. Unfortunately, I wasn't on it. And it looks like if I had chased it a little bit, it would have worked out. Of course, you don't know that at the time. When this is having this big overshoot, I didn't really like that idea. So I said this might be another channel. So actually, I drew a second channel, but I found that this one actually fit pretty decently as the midline here and then the top here. So then I also saw a new high here, first entry long, just by one tick. Prices pulled back. You don't have a second entry long until you get to here. Second entry long, but this is signal bar. It's below the EMA, even though prices are showing a bullish tendency. I just didn't like that this signal bar closed, and this is the trigger bar. Trigger bar, unfortunately, also closed below the EMA, so that gives me pause. It's not a good signal bar, not a good trigger bar, which is this green one. Closed below the EMA. It did bounce off the bottom of this channel because at one time I was playing with the ideas maybe I'm seeing things, maybe there's actually a channel here, but I felt like this new one that I drew, yes, I got one touch, two touch, three touch. I might be trying to get something to fit. And Had this actually bounced off and closed above the EMA, it'd give me more confidence. But there's just a couple things going against that I just didn't quite like. It just didn't. It was just an almost trade. So unfortunately, I didn't take it, and it looked like it would have worked at least for a quick scalp. So I think I would have entered probably one tick above here, which would be a 44.25. So I'd need to get out at about 44.0175. 44.0175 is right about here. It looks like it went up to 44.0225, so it would have been enough for a quick scalp. Came back down. I see a higher low confirmation. This higher low confirmation, so I see this. I see, okay, there's definitely a higher low because it's higher than this one, but I don't like this trigger bar is inside of this one. And this actually just closed one tick above. It would have given me confidence, but look like it pulled down, flashed up, back up. But when it flashed back up, there wasn't enough momentum by the buyers to break it above here. So I had to wait. And of course, when this flashed up, then I was just like, okay, well, probably missed that trade. And then you do have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, and you could say it's second entry short failure, but you're right at the top now. So I did not like that. I had to let it go. Prices continue moving up. And I do have to point out that when I missed this trade here, I was for sure feeling FOMO because I trade on Pacific Standard Time. This is where the entry happened. It's already 10:15, so I already waited 3 hours watching this chop, 3.5, 3 hours 45 minutes. And when I missed that trade, which I thought was a decent setup, I did have to exhibit some self-control to not just kind of jump on anything immediately and chase trades. So it was for sure difficult. Prices continue moving down. I saw a new high here. So this is like a triple test. So I counted this as a localized, the new high, these three here. New high, first entry long, pulls back, second entry long. And at that time so I had multiple kind of channels going at one time, but this is the one that ended up dominating. And I saw this is like it's a nice bounce here. Unfortunately, it closed below the EMA, so I wasn't sure if it's losing power because similar to this previous setup, where I had this dotted line as a channel. I liked that it touched the bottom, went to the top, touched the bottom, went to the top, touched the bottom. But this time it failed to reach all the way over, but of course it eventually made it up. I saw a similar characteristic happening here. It comes back down to the bottom, it's showing support, but it's having trouble getting back up to the top. So it went to the bottom, all the way to the top. You could argue it touched it twice, kind of came back to the bottom, but then it never made it to the top. It made another attempt to try to get there, but it didn't. Then it made another attempt here, but it fell short of this triple test. So when I saw this, I felt this signal bar just wasn't good enough. I mean, it's a possible trade if I was more aggressive. The signal bar just felt too neutral. Had it just closed more bullish, like up here, then I would have said, okay, this is great because first entry long, because like this is a great signal bar. I needed this signal bar right here. Even if it was close to the EMA but not above, I would have considered it. But this actually looked like it opened, flashed around, and closed just one tick above. So that gave me pause. And it looks like it would have worked. So I'm going to chalk that up to inexperience and probably not as keen on reading these prices that well. But unfortunately, that would just come with time. The prices continue moving up. I draw this because at one time I was playing with the idea there might be a sub channel here. As I said, this actually looks like it fits pretty well. So I was playing with the idea of like perhaps this isn't the top resistance. This might have been like an overshoot previously. So I just connected these lines here. It looks like it's respecting it. There's no setup. You have a new high here. First entry long, second entry long is a terrible signal bar. I had to leave it alone. I looked for a higher low. You technically have a higher low here, but it fell too far from the EMA and it is testing the localized high. So I had to leave that one alone as well. Prices continue to move. I see a new high here. First entry long. Actually, that is strange. I think I did reload the historical data, but I think previously I had this candle was either lower than this one, but for sure I saw something like a first entry long and then a second entry long. So I did mark it here, and it doesn't actually. Might be mistaken. Unfortunately I can't reload old historical data, but I did a first entry long, second entry long. Nevertheless, it wasn't a good signal bar to take a long off of, even though it is bouncing and you do see a clear bullish bias. So unfortunately not coming back to this key entry point, this one down here, because at here you would already clearly know it's already confirmed. So coming back down to here would have been a kind of a no-brainer trade, but here it feels a little bit more iffy. So yes, this one was probably a good trade, but not a good trade, but a worthwhile trade, except neutral bar, neutral signal bar. And then this one higher low, potentially a trade here. But as I said, it was kind of an inside bar. So all these little things kind of was a little confusing, threw me for a loop, and I just had to let those go. Prices continue moving up, and then it kind of comes back down. You have first entry long, second entry long was too congested. I have to leave it alone. Comes back, tests this again. So you could actually see this one leg down, pulls up the second leg down. I was thinking that, but it's too late in the day because it's already 12:53 and the market regular trading hour is closing in about 7 minutes. So I didn't want to have to deal with, an anxious trade and then ending red. So then prices then, chop for the rest of the day, which is the last 7 minutes. And I try not to, well, I look, but I don't take any trades back here because it just feels too dicey, especially on a day where today, I don't want to, just walk away red because I wanted to try to take a trade. So I had to let it go. And it kind of went into the close. So overall, it was interesting price action. I wouldn't say it was difficult, but there was just a lot of trade setups that were almost there, just not quite there. I missed this one, and I feel really unfortunate about that one. And overall, I didn't see too many setups that were good. So hopefully that was helpful.